All right, day 5 has parts 1 and parts 2, so I'll just roll through all of them today. A gorilla is having a monthly checkup with the zoo vet. Circle the best way to measure how much the gorilla weighs. Well, since we're talking about weight, we definitely don't want it in inches, so the best answer would be pounds. There were a few boxes of cereal left on the top shelf of the store. Tiffany took 3 of them earlier today, and this morning there were a total of 10 boxes on the top shelf. How many boxes of cereal were left on the top shelf? So this one takes a couple of steps in figuring out what's missing. There's a few boxes left. Well, we know that Tiffany took 3 of them, and that earlier this morning there were 10. So if you think about the start, they started with 10 boxes this morning. We know that she took 3 of them, so if you take something, you're going to get rid of 3, which leaves us with an answer of 7. So there are 7 boxes of cereal left. Moving on, we have a bar graph. It says answer questions 3 and 4 using the following pictograph. I am so sorry. It's supposed to be bar graph. Um, so when we look at it, we've got our favorite fruits. We're counting down here. It's important to see the number of students. We're counting by 1, which is nice. It says how many students voted total. Well, what you would want to do is add them all up. So we notice there's 1, 2. Well, you could always do it this way. There's 1. We know this one lines up right here with 5. This might be helpful to encourage them to find out all of their data or information before they start adding it up. We look right here, it lines up with the 4, and right here lines up with the 3. We could say, okay, 1 plus 5 is 6, 1 more is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there were 16 students that voted. How many more students voted for oranges than apples? Well, in this case, we want to compare the oranges and the apples. So when you look at this, you want to figure out how many more. Well, they both had 2 because they match up right here. So the difference between 4 and 2 is going to be 2 votes. So 2 students or 2 votes, however you want to label that one. For 5, what describes the rule used in this pattern? Well, this is a growing number pattern, so it's not repeating. Nothing's happening over and over. So what you need to do is I tell the kids to do at least 2 rounds. To get from 6 to 12, we're getting bigger, which means we're going to be adding. And if you look across the whole set of numbers, we're adding the whole time. So that automatically gets rid of B and D. So when you keep going, you notice the difference between 6 and 12 means we add 6. But just to make sure we didn't make a mistake, we want to go from here to get from 12 to 18. They can go 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and they notice that it's 6, or they could subtract them. So our answer would be C. For number 6, which amount is greater? Well, you got to do a little figuring out. They can draw it out. They can count in their head. They can use actual coins, whatever works. They should figure out that 2 quarters is worth 50 cents. They should also figure out that 4 dimes is 40 plus 3 nickels. 3 nickels would make 15. So when you have 40 and you add 15 cents, you get 55 cents. So the question said, which amount is greater? The answer would be B. Number 7, the box below is Mrs. Martin's treat box. Draw items inside the box, making sure that it is most likely a bouncy ball will be pulled out. So they can put anything they want. They can put whatever amount they want. The one thing that I ask is that whatever they use to stand for bouncy balls, they have the most of those. Now, it cannot be all bouncy balls, because if it's all bouncy balls, then it would be certain, not most likely. And if you had more of something else, then the bouncy balls would not be most likely anymore. They would be less likely. You cannot have the same amount of bouncy balls and something else, because then it would be equally likely. So it can be any other shapes as long as you make sure that bouncy balls has the most pieces inside the treat box. Circle all the items that should be weighed in ounces and not pounds. Just as a reminder, ounces are about the weight of a piece of bread, and pounds would be about a loaf of bread. The heavier something is, we want to start using pounds. The lighter it is with ounces. So if we just want to use ounces, second graders would definitely not work. Pencils definitely could be weighed with ounces. CDs could be weighed with ounces. Cars, which you could even say for CDs, you could actually say DVDs if you wanted, because some of the kids may not know what a CD is anymore. Cars, definitely not. Now I know if they were thinking about Matchbox cars or something like that, it might work, but in this case, we're thinking regular cars. Sunglasses could definitely work in ounces, and dictionaries, I would say no to that one. All right, so here's the part two if you chose to do it. If you look at the bottom, these said to solve. So if you want, you can circle the bigger number in the ones place. Bigger's on the floor. We go borrow from next door and get 10 more. We subtract and we get 13. Now your child could also draw out 5 tens for 50. Take away 7. Uh-oh, we don't have any ones to take away 7 of them. So we have to crush one of them and turn it into 10 ones. Now we can take away 7, which would be all of those 5, 6, 7. And then we also need to take away the 3 tens, which would be 1, 2, 3. And if you notice, we're left with 1 10, 1 10, and 3 ones, 3 ones. The next one, if you want to circle the bigger number, bigger's on the floor. We got to go next door and get 10 more. The 9 becomes an 8. We give the 10 to the 1 in the ones place, which becomes 11. We subtract it. 11 take away 4 equals 7. 8 take away 2 equals 6. You could also draw this one out if you needed to. You'd have to crush one and break it into tens and then take away your 4, just like we did here. And finally, again, we're regrouping. Bigger's on the floor, go next door. We bring the 10 over. 12, take away 9. Now, instead of counting backwards, you can always start at the 9 and count up to 12. So you would say 9, go. 10, 11, 12. And it took 3. That's another way that works sometimes for kids because their brain doesn't want to count backwards. Sometimes they like to count up, which is totally fine as well. And 6, take away 4. Or if we start at 4 and count up to 6, we get 2. And there you go. Match the digital times to their correct analog clock. Well, if your child wants to, they can go through and label the hour hand on each of them, which is the shorter hand. I'm sorry, I'm doing a horrible job of labeling them. The minute hand is the longer one. I like to say it goes almost all the way out to the edge of the clock. We count minute hands by fives. The hour hands look at what is the hour between. I like to say whatever it's gone past is what the hour is, and whatever it's hasn't touched yet is what it's on its way to. It gets really tricky when they get over, like in this case, when they get, I call this the danger zone, when they get over into the 9, 10, 11 on the clock. It starts to look like the next hour, but it's not quite there. So when we match them, I would really focus on doing the minute hand. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. It's between the 4 and the 5, so 425. So these would go together. So then we look here. If we do the minute hands, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Hour hands between the 12 and the 1, so 12, 40. Another thing I might encourage is, hey, you guys know that 6 is 30 minutes. Start at 30, 35, 40. That's another way to help them with their fluency when it comes to telling time. Also, for the last one, don't just pick it because it's the last one. Always check it all the way through. We count by fives, 5. And we know that the hour hand is between the 8. It looks like it's even on the 8 because it just passed 8 o'clock. So it will be 8:05, those match. Now this one says color the things that should be measured in pounds in blue, color the things that should be measured in ounces in yellow. So if you don't have the colors, you can just show them in different ways. So your teacher would definitely be in blue for pounds. Other things that would be in pounds would be the door. Another thing you would want to weigh in pounds would be a backpack. Now that's tricky because if it's empty, you may not want to. A school bus for sure, your desk for sure, and a lunchbox. This could be tricky too because if it was a really full lunchbox, you might measure it with pounds. Now, as for ounces, switch my color. Definitely 10 pencil top erasers. You could say if it was an empty lunchbox, you could have circled that. It says a full one, but if it's not a very full one, I would understand ounces too. A backpack, if it was empty, maybe. not a school bus, a pack of gum for sure, an earring for sure, and definitely not your desk. All right, moving on. Label the correct temperature under the thermometer. Well, when they line the top of the red line up, they should be able to find, that was a horrible line, I'm sorry, that it is about 40 degrees. And when they line the top of this one up, they'll notice it's about 60 degrees. And we focused a lot on temperature in science. So next one, color in the thermometer to show the correct temperature. So 70 degrees. My advice to students would be to go to the 70 degrees. Now, they don't need to know negative degrees down here at the bottom. So just have them focus on that long little one that sticks out a little bit right there. And it's okay if they drew a line outside of the thermometer, that'd be fine. And just have them colored in. It doesn't have to be red. But just try to have them start practicing coloring in the thermometer, in the lines, including the little circle at the bottom, because when they do see thermometers, it is going to look like this. And I'm doing as good of a job I can on my computer without being able to actually color it myself. The next one, 15 degrees. Again, remember, do not worry about these negatives down here. They won't learn that till much later. But for 15 degrees, they want to figure out, uh-oh, I'm counting by tens. Well, I know that 15 is in the middle of 10 and 20. So they might want to zoom in really carefully and find a spot right about in the middle. And, as close as they can get, just so they understand that 15 degrees is between here. And then you want to color in again all the way to the bottom. Make sure they're doing a neat job of it, and that'd be great. All right, below are the sides of my cube. Here are my dice, basically my cube. I have a 5, a 3, a 5, a 5, a 5, and a 1. My friend Kelly said that it is certain I will get a 2. Is she correct? Well, the answer is no. If yes, how do you know she's correct? Well, we know that she's not correct. If no, why not? Well, we could say that we know she's not right because certain means without a doubt. And if she was certain it was a 2, then all of these would have to be 2s. And in actuality, none of them are 2s. So whatever they write here, make sure it has something to do with there are no 2s. Certain means without a doubt there's no 2. There would have to be all 2s, something along those lines. And finally, using the pictures to the right, fill in the bar graph with the correct information. Now, this does not mean color it in just a little bit. This means make it look like the whole square is colored in and they're all connected, not separate boxes. So when we look at them, we're counting by ones. If we count the B's, we see there's 2. So beside my B's, I'm going to make sure that I don't want to color in just like that. I don't want to have just 2 pieces. I want to make sure that I continue, and if I want, I could mark my 2. I want to make sure that this looks like a giant rectangle. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a horrible job right that this whole 2 boxes have been colored in and made into one bar. For the flies, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could come over here and say, oh, here's 5. I'm going to go ahead and trace that so I know how far to go back. Then if they wanted to color back, oh golly, sorry. If they wanted to go back over here, they could go back and fill it in. Of course, they will do a much neater job. But they want to make sure that all of the squares are connected because we want them to look like, I like to say, giant chocolate bars that are all connected. And finally, your ladybugs, 1, 2, 3, 4. They can find the 4. They can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then fill all those in. And again, don't let them be unconnected. Make sure they're all connected, and that will make it a lot easier to see. Now they can use the same color, they can use a different color if they want to. The choice is theirs. So great job.